Good morning.
Good morning, Jenny White, and all our viewers. We never tell our viewers.
I know. Good morning, viewers.
We're excited to have them on with us.
Do what?
I said, we're excited to have them on with us.
Of course. Thank you for being on with us.
Well, how do you feel? I mean, again, stock market's at all-time high. We've got, think about this, Jenny. We've spent $35 trillion just in regular national debt. I mean, that's a lot of money for anybody. I mean, I think you'd live pretty comfortable with 35 trillion, but also on top of that, we have over 200 and like almost $220 trillion in unfunded liability. That's like all the pension funds and all the Social Security, Medicare, and all this stuff. Think about how much money we pumped into the system. That's all-time highs across the board. You should be having the best life you've ever had with no inconvenience. I mean, just total, just every dream and wish come true because there's just so much money been put into the system. Is that true?
Well, so my house insurance got canceled.
I guess that's bad news for you.
Well, I mean, we can talk about that because you're talking about, you know, what's going on with the stock market and people are hurting. I mean, they're
people are hurting bad.
In a million gajillion ways. And I'm not the only one who, I mean, I'm dying to know, anybody who's watching, type in, you know, yeah, I got mine canceled too. But we had numerous people out here in our area who we got canceled, our insurance got canceled. Her house insurance got canceled. And the reason why has to do, and I'm trying to find somebody, I'm trying to find an insurance person to come on the podcast and talk about it. Because if you want to know the truth, I think that this whole insurance scam is another way to get us out of the houses and stack and pack into the cities. I think it's just another way. And, you know, we're going to have Julianne on here in just a second so we can kind of run through all these things that we've been talking about. But part of what my insurance agent told me the other day after she told me, you know, this great news about me losing my home insurance is that you know how poop rolls downhill, right? So apparently you've got the insurance companies that are in here and they've got unfunded liabilities too, right? Yeah. So now you've got these people that are coming in over them that are supposed to monetize or help monetize all of these mid-level companies who are, you know, having losses. And we've lost in Oklahoma numerous insurance companies. They've just pulled out. And my insurance agent was telling us that it's the legislature that's to blame because there are some antiquated insurance laws. And maybe we need to have the insurance commissioner on here to talk about that. And maybe I ought to send a request to his office and talk about that. Because if there are laws that are causing insurance companies to move out, and we already know that the crunch on our finances is pretty huge, and that combined is helping us lose the ability to insure our homes. You know, I think that's a pretty huge thing. And my insurance agent was like, you just don't know how crappy my job has become anymore lately, because all I do is pick up the phone and go, your insurance was canceled.
Wow. Well, speaking of getting canceled, our local hero, Julianne, should be pretty excited about Klaus Schwab, Mr. WEF, getting canceled from the World Economic Forum. His overseers have basically removed him from all roles with the World Economic Forum. I don't know if you knew that happened yesterday or the day before.
No, I'm gonna bring in Julianne so she can get in on this because I know she'll want to. I read about that. I just saw kind of a blurb about it, but I didn't really follow it. So what's going on?
Are you going to have Michael answer this one or me?
Whichever one of you. I don't
If
know.
Julianne knows, I just know I saw it, and he's been pretty much removed from all executive decision, the whole 9 yards. He's not the front man. He's not going to be making any decision, because he was just bragging earlier in the year how he's still going to be there running that whole deal until he's 100 years old. And he wants us to eat bugs and, the whole 9 yards. When his Star Trek outfits with his, medallions that he wears. I mean, talk about crazy.
Well, I'd like to be excited about it, but I'm just reminded of Machiavelli and the strategy of using someone to take the heat, to do all the dirty work. And then when everyone is sort of catching on to the fact that dirty work is being done, then you have a change of leadership, right? And people think things are going to get better, but do they get better? No, because the plan of succession has always been planned out. So I'm not very optimistic that, that there's any real good to come from Klaus's removal. He's controlled by guys higher up, and they have agreements, and there's someone waiting in the wings who's probably, going to promote some glorious vision of the new possible and the economy of abundance. And we're not going to have the surveillance tech, but we're going to have, regenerative agriculture and getting back to the earth and Gaia worship and all of that. So
I agree 100%.
So don't get excited yet, right?
No, I'm not excited. I think it's actually bad because I like Klaus being in there because he was so arrogant. He told us their plans.
He was a blabbermouth.
Yeah. He liked to just brag about what's coming. I think whoever the new guy's going to be is actually going to be worse because, like you said, it's going to be now shrouded. It's all going to be happy. It's all going to be good for you. They're not going to tell nothing. Whoever the new guy is not going to be telling us, what the real plans are.
He's going to look like an improvement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Klaus is like Bill Gates, is like Joe Biden, is like any of these people who have been selected to, be the public bad guys. And so, at least we know that they're bad guys, but the next successor is going to appear like a savior. I see this dynamic repeating over and over again. You see it in the corporate world, you see it in education, when you bring in a new principal and they last for a year and do a lot of damage, and then you have to bring in someone new to clean it up. I mean, it's the same story all the time.
Oh, it's kabuki theater. I mean, I remember my dad used to say that, and I had to go look it up to see what kabuki theater was. And that was just really a whole fascinating thing. But I definitely think that's where we are, right now is a whole bunch of animation and play story around these notions that people who are way smarter than us have. And it's just, we've got to recognize that for what it is and pull back and not get in the middle of that and not watch it, like it's some kind of interesting thing. We need to figure out what's going on and try to stop it, do the best we can to stop it.
Yeah, I agree. And, to sort of go back to what you were talking about in the beginning, Jenni, about home insurance and, trying to figure out, okay, do we have laws on the books that are causing this, pull out of insurers from Oklahoma, or is this a matter of the corporate unfunded liabilities? We do have to figure that stuff out. So I think our task as Oklahomans who care about our freedom, who, want to do the right thing for our families and for those around us, we have to get down into the dirty details and not get distracted by, by the theatrics of it, because most of it is theatrics. But, I think you're exactly right to point out that there is something really sinister going on with the insurance cancellations. And I think this has to do, if I can take it in this direction, this has to do with a larger program of risk management and hazard mitigation that is rolling out in all sectors. So, the insurance business is about, distributing risk. So, you have your subscription and you pay a little so that you don't have to pay a lot all at once, and you hedge your risks, right?
Right.
If we look at what the Great Reset is, at what Agenda 21 is, Agenda 2030, it is all about sustainable development, which means development under a risk management paradigm.
Oh my gosh. I never even put that together before.
Because they want to do what? They want to measure
That's
and manage
right.
and monetize all resources. So what is that about? It is about managing risk, and their fancy word for it is resilience. That it's the ability to sort of weather risks or bounce back from setbacks. And traditionally insurance providers have been a way to increase resilience,
right,
or manage that risk. But now what we're seeing is that the new economy has a different way of managing risk that is based on developing an economy with rationed resources, right? So our older insurance model paradigm sort of worked on the idea of a market-driven economy, but we're moving out of a market-driven economy into this sustainably developed economy. And so we're going to see, large requirements for insurance, but we're going to see companies not offering that product. And, the insurance products that are, say, required by law because, for example, maybe you live in a floodplain. And so the government says, well, you have to have flood insurance because we want to control the risk to you. But, private sector insurance providers don't provide flood insurance. You have to get it through the federal government, correct? So as we're seeing, you see where I'm going with this?
I do. Oh my gosh.
As we see like private insurers saying, I'm no longer going to insure your vehicle. I'm no longer going to insure your home. Why is this? It's because there is a larger economic transformation going on that doesn't favor the free market. Instead, it wants to push people into a single payer system. And it's going to be, it's the same trend as in healthcare, right? You're pushing everyone into a single payer system. And maybe that single payer is going to be the government, as in the case of flood insurance, or maybe it's going to be some public-private partnership, or maybe it's just going to be the private sector. But in any event, these kinds of cancellations are, they play into this risk management dynamic that we could talk all day about. I've kind of left it fuzzy, but it's related to the land grab, and you're exactly right. It's related to taking your home and stacking and packing you into a smart city.
Well, and I want to just expand on that just a second, Julianne. When you talk about that, people can't really get their head around rationing here because we have to say, we've got a pretty abundant life. If we don't want to go buy something, we can. If we want to do something, we pretty much can. But, with that forward agenda of, the Great Reset. They have all this talk about CBDC, the central bank digital currency. That's how they're going to expedite that rationing scenario when they tokenize everything, when they have control of that dollar instead of you having control. Now, when you actually go to the store or you go to buy this or do that, if you're over your limit, they can just literally cut you off. I mean, they have literally said that they can stop you, when you hit a certain carbon output or, whatever they deem, that rationing position is going to be. That's how they'll control it, because our dollar is now gone and it's turned into this tokenized, blockchain controlled single entity that literally has control of every single thing you have and do is going to be visible to them. So I can see exactly how that whole
I'm getting off of here. I'm getting off of here. I'm done with this.
It's not fantasy. It's not fantasy anymore. I mean, they're working towards that. I mean, this was, rewind 10 or 20 years ago, you'd be like, no way is that even possible. No way can the dollar collapse. No way can you have all this. I mean, it's playing out. I mean, they've talked about it. They have white papers about it. They put it out all the time, and as it's something that's so great, but it's literally that. I think it's going to be part of that process, Julianne, of how they're going to be able to implement all that control on us.
Yeah, I mean, and just think about, I think you're exactly right about their control over, our freedom, about what we can buy, what our money is worth.
Well, and that's what they do in China.
Yeah, exactly.
They absolutely do that in China. So I think, and I hate to interrupt your thought, but
no,
I think it's important to say here, it's not as though this isn't without precedence. So you can say to yourself, and so many people like me, I hadn't even put those dots together until we started talking this morning. And, when I think about this a lot. So you think about people who aren't even in the space to begin to recognize this, right? Their heads just aren't there. And you just think to yourself, this has already been done. They already have the model.
Yeah.
It's been done. It's not like they're going, well, we'll just experiment to see how this works out. That's called China. China. It's not unheard of. And I think that we have to understand that.
Yeah.
That, like you said, Michael, just a second ago, this isn't some pie in the sky. This is America. That's never going to happen here. No, they already have so much infrastructure in place for this, and we're just falling into it like lemmings. It's shocking.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget, like during COVID, it didn't really happen here. But in other countries, you had to show your ID to go into a store. They were documenting that kind of stuff in other countries. We're going to be the last place maybe that it all rolls out, because they're going to perfect the system, because most Americans are not going to just accept that. But in my opinion, they're destroying the dollar on purpose in order to bring in this new savior system, for us. That's how I feel.
I completely agree. And it wasn't until the other day and me talking to my insurance agent about the insurance, and she was saying, look, I now have, and this is really what got me, frankly. She said, obviously, I love my job because I love to help people and help them, get what they need to cover the things that they've worked hard for. And so I really like my job. But lately, I haven't liked it at all, because I have to call these people and say, well, I'm sorry, I can't really cover what you've worked hard for anymore. It's going to cost you this. And they say, I don't have that. So I guess I just don't have insurance anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then you think
about, they're going to do it here, I think.
What about the weird fires that come up, and oh my gosh, now people just don't have the insurance left to rebuild. So who comes in and swoops up all that property?
Yeah. That's it. FEMA, the federal government, public-private partnerships, foundations.
Yeah.
That's it. So, when COVID started and people were talking about, okay, there are going to be runs on the stores and we're we're going to run out of food and this and that. Well, there were certain problems with supply chains and, things like that. But I never saw, I never saw major empty shelves in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You could always go find some peanut butter, jelly, chips. You can find everything, right?
You can find toilet paper.
I didn't have any problem finding it,
I just think the toilet paper thing cracks me up. I'm like,
well,
really?
that was the theatrics of it, I think that's like part of these sort of propagandists and controllers like mocking us. But but I thought you could find what you wanted at the store to, your basic consumer items. And so the fears of not being able to find, food to stock your shelves with, I think those were, sort of misplaced. And people are still talking about the possibility of that, and maybe it is a possibility, but and they're talking about that contributing to a decimated economy. But what I see happening in the U.S. is that with these requirements for insurance and for higher risk protection, and the requirement to get a license to do something or a permit to do something, to pay for upgrades, to your property to make it compliant with environmental regulations. All of these types of maneuvers are the way that you take the United States down. So that, we could be transferred to a CBDC system or, or a private monetary system. And, through the sophisticated surveillance technologies, they could say, okay, you're not allowed to use your store credits today because you have kept your lights on for too long. They could do that, right? And I think that they will eventually. But what I see happening in the immediate term is that people are going to be taxed to death, and they're going to have we're going to have unfunded mandates on the personal household level. So you have to have motor vehicle insurance to drive in Oklahoma, right? But you're going to see a major shortage of vehicle insurance policies available because
or that are affordable.
Yes, we're going to be priced out of these things, but we're going to be required by law to have them. So, same with your house, same with, personal property, with liability insurance. We're just going to be taxed to death and be subjected to these unfunded mandates. So we're going to be so busy paying all of the risk management, bills that come in, that you're not going to have money to go buy your chips or peanut butter or whatever it is at the store. You can't buy the toilet paper, not because it's not on the shelves, but because you're scrapping trying to cover, your home insurance.
Yeah, but I mean, and I know I'm betting that this is resonating with people who are on today. I mean, if it is, I'd love for you to comment and say, but I hadn't even, because don't forget, they have to kill the middle class, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have to kill the middle class. That's the very first thing, because you have to have a dichotomy. You have to have the elites against the peons, and the middle class foils a lot of that, their ideal. And Michael, you said how many times the middle class is in debt, right?
Yeah.
Because we're paying all of these insurance costs. I mean, how much do people pay for their health insurance?
Oh, good.
How much
I can tell you what I paid for mine and for our family, and you just be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I mean,
we figured it up the other day, in between life insurance for my husband, health insurance for everybody, car insurance, and home insurance. And we still keep the kids on our car insurance policy because even though they're all over 18 anymore, it's way cheaper to do that until they have their own, good income coming in. So between all of those things, we're almost at $28,000 a year.
See, for risk management, right? And if you look at what companies are doing.
Who can afford that?
Nobody can. It's totally unsustainable, right?
Well, but isn't that the point? I mean, Julianne, I mean, that's
that
where
is
now
the
the government, the government's going to be the hero. The government's going to provide the transportation, or let's say not even the government. Let's say the government
and your employer. Your employer.
Your employer.
So now, you can't drive, you can't live in a house, you can't do this because now it's all provided by, this overseer in some capacity. I mean, it's so black and white. It's so easy to see. It's so
yeah, it's maddening, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Just think like what different companies are doing. So, we have a company that we use for our heating and air conditioning, our residential service. And it used to be that you would call and you have them come out and they do their checkup. Well, then they started doing this, oh, well, you can enroll in a sort of membership program, right? And you pay for the preventative maintenance. Everything is preventative maintenance now. So we are paying so much for preventative maintenance, whether it's your air conditioner, whether it's Obamacare. What was that about? It was about wellness plans, which I thought that model sounded pretty good. Not, when HMOs started coming out, I thought, well, isn't it good to, prevent a serious condition rather than treat it after it's already become, very serious in your life. To me, I mean, I think I was 18 or 20 at the time and having this conversation with my mom because I was still on her insurance. And so that model sounded like a good idea. Let's do the preventative maintenance. But now we see everything is preventative maintenance. You go to buy, the smallest little electronic device or furniture item at the store and they say, do you want consumer protection?
Yeah.
And so do you want
I want a warranty on my $25 coffee maker.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, so we are paying out the nose for all of these different insurance products.
Yeah.
And guess what? The surveillance state is built to support the insurance industry, let's say, because if we think, let's use the healthcare model, you take lots of data from many hundreds of millions of patients, then you can really hone your predictive analytics to a very fine point, and you can know exactly whether or not some treatment is going to, the cost of that treatment is going to outweigh, or I'm sorry, the probability of a successful treatment is going to outweigh the costs. And so, when we look at like value-based healthcare and how insurance companies are making determinations, well, you can have this procedure because there's a high probability that it will turn out favorably, which really means for the insurance company not have to pay more money for your care. They're making all those sorts of determinations about whether you can have care, whether you can get this procedure, whether you can choose the provider that you want based on a huge surveillance infrastructure that they have erected and that they continue to implement through data sharing agreements and electronic health records and all that. So they're doing that on every level. Like, Jenni, are you the kind of person that's going to, what are your home purchases? What are, the behaviors that you engage in that make you an insurance asset or a liability? They have all of that information. They know who they can cancel. They know who they can't cancel. And this is all about making money for BlackRock and giant hedge funds.
And you know, it hit me while you were talking. Again, I'm so glad we have these opportunities to talk, because I hear things coming together when you talk, and I'm hoping our viewers, that's why they tune in, because they see things coming together. But you know, we were talking about control over things like, you know, food and what you eat and that kind of thing, and it just hit me that one of the things that really has bothered me, well, it's kind of niggling in the back of my head. I have a membership to Sam's and I have a membership to Costco. And I noticed several years ago, it just never hit me, because I was thinking, oh, well, that's great. So when I go to Sam's and I use my card especially, but it doesn't even matter. When I go to Sam's has a record of everything I bought at Sam's. And I know that's true, because if I ever have to get on the website for any reason, Sam's.com, I look and it says, here's your account and here's what you bought. Do you want to buy more of that?
Yep.
Same way with Costco. So when people think to themselves, well, I can't see how the surveillance system is going to surveil anything like that. Do you know that on the back of your driver's license, you have a QR code, essentially, a UPC code. And on the back of that driver's license, and I'm just talking about a regular driver's license, because it will be a cold day in hell before I get the other. I mean, it's just never going to happen. I'll go without driver's license and go to prison before I get one of those. What are they called?
The Real ID.
Real ID.
Real ID. Never going to happen for me.
Yeah.
So those of you who want to get me at something, there you go. On the back of that is a UPC code. Have you ever noticed that when you go and buy like beer or something, they run your UPC code from? So I'm like, now they even know that I'm buying beer, and they get to do that because our stupid legislature has made laws about, you know, when people can drink.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's something that we ought to jump off on right there. We seem to think, oh, yeah, we don't want, you know, kids running around getting into cars and boozing it up and blah. Well, of course we don't. But a law is going to stop that. We have DUIs, DWIs all the time. It didn't stop that. But that sure does. Well, you know what? Now, because of that law, we'll put this little UPC code on the back of your. I mean, guys, we end up, like I said before, falling into this like a bunch of ignorant lemmings.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, this is going to sound terrible out there, especially to people who have suffered because of something like this. But, you know, let's imagine someone is driving drunk and they leave their destination and they get home, and by a miracle, they don't hurt anyone, right? So there was no injury to any other person. It was a very dangerous thing to do.
Absolutely.
But it didn't hurt anyone. Why do we have a law that criminalizes a certain activity before it causes an injury? So why do you make a law against drunk driving when there's no guarantee that driving drunk is going to result in an injury?
Actually, you know, what was that Tom Cruise movie?
Yep. Minority
Report. I don't think people understand how we live Minority Report right now. I mean, and it's not just that. It's all the senseless, stupid driving laws that we have. You can't drive in the left lane because of blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I've been behind people who have driven in the left lane for miles and miles and miles and miles. You can't get, there's not a share.
No, I mean.
Seatbelts, Jenny. Seatbelts. You know how many seatbelt tickets I have? a lot of seatbelt tickets.
You need to go live in South Dakota.
Is going to hear that. They're going to hear that.
Yeah.
You're going to be canceled.
I'll get even more now.
That's true.
My
you will be canceled over seatbelts.
Yeah, but so think about this. Like, you know, people they're just so unaware of how developed this system is. Yeah. Like, you're exactly right, Jenny. It was tested in China because you have a people there that they were sort of ripe for the pickings, at the time, and they were manipulated. And I can't tell you how many times, just casually, I heard, oh, well, China, it's a communist country, but they're sort of like Americans in their, uh, you know, um, their
No.
business ethic and different things. I would hear this like at grad school, and people just casually make these remarks. And I think that there's got to be some sort of truth to that, because you roll out these policies in China, where they have a more communitarian ethos, and you perfect the tech, and then you bring it here to where, there are some similarities. I mean, we're all God's children, right? We share, that common human bond, right? And characteristics, but
And our
you know,
mitochondrial DNA.
and what?
And our mitochondrial DNA.
Yeah.
We women.
But there are very important differences. And so you get as close to you as you can, and you test protocols, with a control group, and then you introduce them to your real target population, and that's here. And so this is very far along. And if we think about how preventative maintenance is going to work to control people's lives, this is going to roll out to where you go to the store, and instead of, oh, you can't buy this because you've kept your lights on for so long, like your behavior has, you've used up your allotment
Your
of
social
carbon
credit
emission.
score.
Yeah, you use this up for the day. We're going to be moving to a preventative risk model where it says, we know that you will do this if we don't stop you. So it's not like you have even exceeded a limit. We're moving toward pre-crime.
Yeah, but and here's the thing though. So I'd love to know how many of you people watching today have smart appliances.
Yeah.
Because you're stupid for buying smart appliances.
Yeah.
Well, and connecting them to your network. But don't forget, you got smart meters on your smart electric meters. You got smart water meters now, installed by the city.
Yeah. And who is gonna really want the data about your energy usage? Okay, we could say it's the government, but guess what? It's going to be your employer. This is Scope 3 emissions tracking. Everyone needs to write that down. If you're in Oklahoma, you write it down. Scope 3 emissions tracking. This goes into ESG. It means indirect emissions. So corporations they're falling into the ESG, which is social credit scoring for business paradigm, right? And so they're all going to be monitoring their emissions, their environmental, social, governance outcomes, right? Well, they also have to track indirect emissions, and those include employee commute times, how you get to work, what mode of travel. They include what employees do in their own home if you're working remotely. So if you are a remote worker and you're running, a load of laundry while you're technically working, that is going to fall under the corporation's indirect emissions. So if you think that your employer is uninterested in what kind of appliances you have, think again, because what they're going to do is they're going to want the data for your energy usage, what kinds of choices you've made in terms of purchasing efficient appliances versus, I just bought an old non-smart Speed Queen washer
You did?
dryer. Yeah, because I didn't.
Where'd you find it?
At an appliance store here in Tulsa. It's like a commercial version. It's awesome. No computers at all.
Oh, I love that.
Like that. I mean, that shows that I am not concerned about the environment, right? I'd rather have clean clothes for the 4 loads of laundry that I do every day with my crazy circus, but your employer is going to want that information, because what you do in your time at home while you are remote working, that's going to affect your company's ESG score, and they have to manage that risk. So they're going to nudge you towards certain choices to hedge their own bets, to hedge their own risk.
Well, something that it's kind of a little off topic, but we were going to talk about land grabs and stuff today, and we kind of got off on the other. Not that it's not important, and I do see insurance as a way to land grab.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you can't afford your own insurance and your house burns down accidentally, because you're hooked to a smart meter and something happens. I mean, I don't know. Your house burns down, you can't build it back. Who gets it? The state, if you can't afford to build back on it. So I do think there's that. But I want to point out something, and I hammer farmers a lot. And I'm a hobby farmer, so y'all can make fun of me as much as you want. But trust me when I say hobby farming is when you're trying to work a full-time job and do a farm at the same time. That's a trick. I mean, you talk about a circus, that's a pretty good juggling act.
Yeah.
So, but I'm telling you, I will never forget going to the farm store initially when we moved out here, and I was telling them what they need, and they said, well, do you have a tax ID number? And I'm like, why would I have a tax ID number? Well, I mean, anybody with 20 acres or over, you can have a tax ID number, and then that way you can take this off of your income tax at the end of the year. Well, I said at the time, because I'm not smart, I said at the time, I looked at the guy and I said, the owner of the feed store, and I said, well, that doesn't sound like a great idea to me. I don't think I want the government knowing anything about what I buy just so I can save a few bucks. And he was like, I don't know. Well, it really adds up. Well, that same farm owner, that same farm store owner tells me one day, man, I had the government come out and they were telling me, because I had my tax ID, they came out and they were looking at my combine and checking out all my stuff that I had and writing it all down. And I was like, wow, it feels good to have that tax ID, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, in all honesty, I get that farming's tough. I mean, I get it. It's not a job for everybody. And that's why everybody doesn't do it. That's why you've got a bunch of farmers whose kids are running off to the cities going, sorry, Dad, I hate this crap, right? Yeah. It's not easy. But farmers have done it to themselves, taking subsidy after subsidy after subsidy. Well, I want my please give me my tax ID number so I can have, get a few dollars off my taxes at the end or whatever. Well, as soon as they know and you're in their system, they know what you have. They know your land. Are you going to try to tell me that suddenly now the EPA isn't going to come in because they've already regulated water? I saw an article the other day, and this has been years ago, that the EPA, and I don't know who remembers this, came in and said, we're going to regulate all water sources because we don't want water pollution. And so we're just going to have to regulate all water sources. And they were talking about, this was a huge thing, even the puddles in your driveway, they're saying they have access to, right? Well, when you stop and you think about it, what's going to say that the EPA isn't going to come in now that you've dumped biosludge, this toxic crap, human crap, all over your property, and they know what you have because you have your tax ID number, and they go, well, you've been putting biosludge on your farm, and we know that has PFAs in it, and so your land is now toxic. We're going to come and take it away from you, right? It's the same thing with windmills. Oh, I really want the money for the windmills. They get $35. They're promised all of this to get $35. I want the windmills. I want the solar farm. All you're doing is selling your soul to companies who have sold their soul or are in bed with, from the beginning, the government. And now all your property reverts to the government through a private organization getting government funds. Where am I wrong on that?
You're not. You're exactly right. I mean, you create these, traumatic, dangerous, risk-filled situations, these are created on purpose. Why? Because somebody is going to make big bucks off of the solutions, and they're way ahead of us, you know. So whether it is having to remediate brownfields, whether it is having to remediate after the use of biosludge, whether it is, a health insurance or the health industry having to address cancers that are caused by, you know, things that were presented as healthy and cures, 30 years ago. This is a money maker, and it's a control. I mean, even more than money, it's about control, I think, and really, I mean, I'm going to go sort of way off track here, Jenny, but I'm going to say, as I've been thinking about insurance, a lot. So I didn't know you were going to bring it up, and I didn't know I was going to go off on this topic, but over the last several years, I've been thinking about it. And, I think it sort of demonstrates a lust in the human heart to control the future. And that is something that we need to leave to God. And so we have been for, centuries, this insurance model has been perfected and developed. And now we're at the point where you use the Internet of Things to gather all the data to, make the right choices for us in a sustainably developed economy. And, in a way, we're getting what we deserve, because the whole idea of paying money, say every month or however it's structured, in order to control future risk, like this is an effort for us to not have to rely on God's providence, but to rely on our own means of ensuring that the future is what we want it to be. Now, I'm not saying that you should act imprudently and you should not think long term and try to be responsible. I'm not arguing for that at all. But I think that the development of the insurance industry and how it works has been about controlling all risk, which is really about controlling the future and trying to have more capacity to know what's coming than we as limited human beings are designed to have. But that's a tangent.
Well, and that, I mean, I see a lot of truth in that. And I hate to say this, but I was popping up on the screen while you were talking, and I hated to do that, but I was afraid it would go away. So one of our viewers, Senator Markwayne Mullin, has just disclosed a purchase of stock in a company called Badger Meter. Badger Meter produces automated water meter technology.
Ah, yeah. And he's got his plumbing business, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The EPA recently passed a mandate requiring utilities to upgrade to new automated water meters. Mullin sits on the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works.
The corruption is so in our faces.
Yeah.
Tulsa, Oklahoma just announced that they will be spending $94 million to upgrade their meters.
Yeah, they're doing this everywhere. And it's like you mentioned with the EPA getting into water quality. So, all of the Agenda 21 regionalism, like the model for that is the Florida Everglades, and how you had an ecosystems approach that was able to bring in progressive liberals and conservatives who wanted to protect their hunting and fishing rights. And a huge coalition was built. And this is how they tested the marketing strategies for all of this water regulation, was through the Everglades policy. I've got a book by Bruce. Is it Bruce Babbitt, or who is
that? Sounds right.
Yeah, I think he wrote the book that talks about how the Everglades regulation was the model for national water regulation. And now we're seeing it roll out. You show me a city or town that is not upgrading their water treatment system and their water meters on residential and commercial establishments. I mean, everyone is doing it. Why? Because you have to, no one left behind. And they want to, water flows. That puddle in your driveway is going to touch the Pacific Ocean, and it's going to kill an endangered, fish. If the EPA doesn't track it, that's how this goes.
I didn't get the whole thing out, but I had just read an article 2 days ago. I think it was over the weekend, about the fact that there are a lot of people in Florida that live in those little clear water lagoons. They live around those little clear water lagoons. And in 2 separate places in Florida, the EPA has come in and said, nope, you know what? We're shutting all of this down. This is going to become a protected space so that we can save the manatees.
Yeah.
Because we haven't been doing that for 15 years or more. So we're going to make this a protected space for manatees. So now all of you guys living here, you're out of there. You're going to have to sell your property to the government and get out. Is the EPA a constitutional agency? No. Not under any stretch of the imagination can you make the EPA a constitutional agency. They're unelected bureaucrats put in by people who want to control us. And that's what the EPA is doing, is absolutely controlling everything to get us off of our property so that it becomes government land.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you don't, because a risk to the manatees is a risk to us all.
Yes, correct.
I mean, just look at the UN reports. I mean, what is it, Jenni, from education, like a nation at risk?
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
A world at risk. Like this is so if we want to be smart and figure out how to stop this system, we have to become very risk tolerant ourselves. So just like you said, I'm not getting the real ID. You can,
kiss my behind.
I am going to run the risk of being pulled over, and not having a proper license. We have to become very risk tolerant, because this whole propaganda machine is designed to scare everyone into doing what? Paying, complying with the EPA's crazy regulations, or the Department of Transportation, or USDA. They're really bad too, So it's going to scare everyone into compliance. And it's also going to justify exorbitant, outlays of our income by, for purchasing these insurance products that we think we have to have, or else, oh man, my stove might break, so I better have the home warranty, that product. And we're really driving ourselves into poverty by accepting that logic, but it's just become so normal now. I mean, look at our justice system. You can threaten a lawsuit, and, parties would rather avoid going to court and the risk of a protracted legal battle and all.
Unless you're a public school or the government, where tax dollars fund your ability to just browbeat and beat the regular citizen into the ground.
Yeah. But most people are so risk averse that you're never going to go to court and have, an actual judicial decision arrived at. Instead, you're going to arbitrate, and you're going to come up with deals. And again, we move to a settlement type of paradigm rather than actually getting, laws through precedent in the courts. I mean, so all my point is that all of it is about our aversion to risk. So if we want to have our freedom, we must accept that it is risky. It is risky to live doing the right thing, being principled is risky. It's risky, so we have to say, I'm willing to assume this risk.
Well, and I think we also too need to be able to say, we've got to confront our legislators about this, and in big ways. I mean, our legislators aren't really protecting us. I mean, here in this state, our legislators aren't even protecting us. They won't even sign a bill to keep the WHO out of the state, to protect people from the influence of the WHO.
We need to put them at risk.
I would love to, but I think part of the problem is, we have a nice audience on this morning, and these people are either interested in learning or they have a clue about what's going on, and they just kind of wanted to hear us, weave this all together, which unfortunately we did today. We did what we set out to do. If you don't see where all this is coming from at this point in time now, then I'm not exactly sure how to help you. But we have got to be able to say, look, enough's enough. We're getting this. I'm going to stand for freedom. I am going to accept the risk. But then you, legislators, your job is to protect me from having to put up all of that risk, because you've got outside agencies and organizations like the EPA and the World Health Organization who are going to come in and override our state sovereignty to infringe upon our liberties. I mean, our legislators aren't doing that, or they would have passed this WHO bill, 3 weeks ago when it was brought up.
Yeah. They're totally self-interested. So their job is to, to enact laws that protect the rights of citizens, right?
Not corporations,
exactly,
not political consultants, but the people.
Yeah, but they think that they can do whatever they want. I mean, they think that they are not beholden to us. They think that we are no risk to them. So that's why I say, I mean, I think we have to make our legislators feel that their constituents are engaged, they are vigilant, and they are going to ensure that if those legislators do not do what they must do to protect the rights of the people, then they will be publicly shamed. They will lose their office, and hopefully they'll be run out of town.
Hopefully, but we have a little over 6 million people in this state, and I think only 2 million are registered voters. I mean, it's something ridiculously low. I mean, I just threw that out, so don't catch me on it and say you said. I'm just
fact
saying.
check you right now, Jenny.
Do what?
I said I'm going to fact check you right now.
Please do. Please do. I'm fine with that. I just am saying that the percentage of actual voters in this state are minuscule compared to the number of people that we actually have living in this state. And if people aren't going to vote, then, the legislators get to do whatever they want, carte blanche, for free.
Yeah.
So, and if they're not going to make an educated vote and they're just going to vote on the crap that comes in the mail that the political consultants put out, how are you going to fix that?
Yeah.
I mean, so I think the bottom line here is, if we don't get people who are going to participate in the system is going to just eat us like Pac-Man.
Yeah, we're going to need a little bit more help. I mean, we've had several people. I mean, Jenny, as well as anyone as I do, when you run for any of these offices, I mean, that deck is stacked against people like us. But that doesn't mean we don't keep going and I mean, at some point, there's got to be somewhat of a turning point here. But I mean, it is tough right now. I mean, it is a machine. That political machine is a machine that works very well against us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think the best hope that we have is to do it in the smaller cities and towns.
Yeah.
I mean, the larger the city, if the city has a university or one large corporation or industry employer, uh, I'm thinking like Norman, it would be really hard to do anything in Norman.
Yeah, but they've done pretty well. I mean, they got Larry IKEA, or however you pronounce his name, in as the mayor. They took that back. I mean, so even in Norman, the people got together and said, we're not doing this anymore. So, I think the people are out, and you look in Lincoln County, which is my next door county. You look at them; they are absolutely. They have started an organization against wind turbines in their area that has grown to 3, 4. Delaware Creek, Craig counties now are doing this, following the same model that Lincoln County is. Gives me goosebumps because I think, hey, these are farmers who just want to keep their land, and they don't want to keep going having these things. I don't want to get into it. We've already done a program on that, but I'm just saying, but those people banded together. They saw that there was a clear and present danger to their property, to their way of life, and they just said, that's it. We're going to band together and we're going to do something. So it is not as though we can't do it. But I'll tell you something that I was thinking about this morning, and we're going to have to close here because I know you got to get off, but I just wanted to bring up this point. It shocks me, and it's so interesting psychologically, the fact that liberals are all for global warming. They will absolutely come out of their chairs defending ridiculous solar and wind nonsense and all this other stuff. They'll come out of their chairs to do that. But they don't understand, and they can't see that they're in the middle of a situation in which it's like the empire is taking over, and they'll go see Star Wars and they're never going to root for the empire. They're always going to root for Luke Skywalker. And look at Luke Skywalker himself. Mark Hamill is the biggest lefty ever. And you're like, how do you get this? The empire, you went out and tried to save everybody from the evil empire, but yet these people buy into the evil empire every day, and you just wonder, what in the world? How does that even happen? It's so dumb. They will go to the movie and go, yay, go Luke. Well, we have to have wind power, and if we need to kick those people off their land so that the rest of us can have wind power for the eternal global good, then darn it, we'll just do that. The only thing I can think is, propaganda it works on people of small mental metal.
and it's a religion. I mean, I think it fulfills a religious longing, a spiritual longing, because, and, as we're wrapping up, I don't want to introduce a new thing, but, this search for a higher purpose or the common good, the greater good, all of that, all of those better together, forward together marketing slogans, they appeal to people who have turned their back on traditional faith, but still have this longing to participate in something bigger than themselves. So I think, the green agenda it really is a new religion. Same with corporate purpose, as we're going to see with employers. You cannot change human nature, and human nature has a longing for God. And if you suppress that, then you create a vacuum, and people are going to fill it with other things.
Got to fill the God-shaped hole.
Yep. You said it better than I did. Yep.
No, and I stole that from the person who said that. Well, Julianne, it's been great to have you today again. I really appreciate that. I do believe that we put a bunch of things together that I hope people take to heart. I mean,
yeah.
All we can do is put it out there. We can't make you believe it. We can't make you act on it. We can't make you share it with your neighbor. But all of these things are things that you need to do.
Yeah.
So, well, Julianne, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. And I hope we're going to have you on next month on a Wednesday. I was hoping maybe it was going to be, I don't know. So we'll get together and figure that out. But until then, I hope you have a blessed month.
Thank you so much, Jenni and Michael. It's always fun.
Yeah,
it's always fun if I'm going to talk about these dark, depressing things. You two are my favorites to talk about it with. Until next month.
So until next month. And thanks again, Julianne. We really do appreciate you.
You're welcome.
All right. Take care. And bye. Good night. I'm so glad we have her on because
thank God for Julianne.
She's, there are people in the world that have an intellect that are able to just piece things together. And Julianne is one of those. And I really think that if you don't have the ear to hear what she's saying, on you. I mean, trouble will fall on your house.
Yeah. Well, we've been conditioned. We're in this society now where, we don't want to sacrifice convenience. We don't want to sacrifice, we don't want to have to do things. We don't want to be so self-reliant and, more responsible. We want less, we want more entertainment. And I'll tell you, when you think about it, Jenni, think about, this whole kind of system came in my opinion, just the current control subscription system just kind of came in through software, through entertainment, with all these micro payments. Think about 20 years ago, you used to own your software.
Yeah. No, for sure.
You used to own your word processor. You used to own all your own stuff. Now it's all a subscription. You got to pay, even though it's a small amount. It's just like all that risk, that, do you want to get a warranty for your toaster for $7? Okay. that whole system, that whole micro payment system has been built on technology, which is all data, which all surveils and controls us. Whether we want to believe it or not, it is the new gold. It's the new oil, all that data. And it's just, we allow that, are you going to just keep paying all these small subscriptions for the convenience of having this stuff? Or are you not going to do it? I mean, I try to not do it as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny how we've gotten into this mindset that, well, we have to have these things because of the kids.
Yeah.
And I've fallen into that. So I'm not pointing any fingers because I've got 4 pointing right back at me, so I get it. And I've had the same thing, but I think we've got to think about going back to, an era where we had a lot more freedom and a lot less control, but we also were entertaining ourselves. We weren't having to look to other places for entertainment. And it's shocking when you and I have talked about this before, about the fact that, our parents would boot us the heck out of the house and go, I'll see you again sometime. Just make sure you're home before dinner.
Yeah. I'd be gone from sun up to sundown, literally all summer long. I couldn't let my kids do that in today's time.
No, and that is part of the problem. And I do think that that's an issue. I think when security breaks down and you have no justice and you have a police force that is not always on the up and up, and you have DAs that aren't always on the up and up, and you have people that are thwarting the system of justice here and there, you end up becoming confined because you have to protect yourself and your children. I mean, it is what you do.
Yeah.
We are required to do that even as Christians. So,
well, and I just think ultimately, like going back on the insurance deal with Julianne and what you brought up, I mean, we're going to be competition. Yeah. The free market is going to be priced out.
Correct.
Of the market to where you have basically a single payer system overall, which is going to be the government or the government public-private partnerships with whoever the select few, which we know is going to be the big dogs like a BlackRock or, you know, whoever. Those are going to be the people that's going to provide our transportation, have a hand in our utilities, have a hand in whatever it is, you know, however much food we can buy, you know, all those things are coming, you know, down the pipe here. You know, whether we want to believe it or not, technology, our data is going to allow that to happen. But it's really not that inconceivable when you think about, hey, you can't get private house insurance anymore. Now you have to go to some kind of government program. You know, you can't buy a house. You're going to have to go through the government to buy a house. You can't drive your car because insurance is so high. You're just going to have to use government transportation and their partnership with, you know, one of the rideshare people. I mean, that's how it's going to work. That's what's coming, because you can't afford $7,000 a year, you know, for a single car insurance or, you know, whatever it's going to be. I mean, they're going to raise it up so high to where you can't.
Yeah. But I mean, it's absolutely 100% true. And you know, theoretically, you should be saving money, right? To be able to, you know, well, if we have a car repair, if we have an accident, then we have money in the bank that we've saved to do that. But what were you telling me the other day? I was trying to explain it to my husband, and I couldn't even remember what you said. The number was crazy. Who are in credit card debt? I mean, the percentage of people.
For the first time, you've got credit card, not the very first time, it's escalated. It's almost $1.2 trillion in credit card debt now. But in default, for the first time ever, you've got literally 100 billion people that have, of that credit card in debt, you've got 100 billion just worldwide that have that are delinquent.
How many people are in the world today? That seems like a huge number. What? See, I don't know. I mean,
no, $100 billion.
Oh, okay.
Of that credit card debt.
Oh, okay. I was delinquent. Like, wait a minute, what people?
Yeah, I said 100 billion people. $100 billion worth is delinquent for the first time.
Got it. Yeah. Well, again, they will tax and fee us and out of the market. And, you know, that's the way it's going to be. And I think I am going to see if we can get our insurance commissioner on. I'm going to send him an email after we get off here in a second and see if he'll come on and talk about this issue with us. But I'm not sure how, if you don't see it now, I'm not sure what to do. I just am not. No. I'm not sure.
And don't forget, you know, you're talking about just home insurance as the issue there. Well, already we know in this state, you only have a certain amount of health insurance providers, period, that are even allowed to write insurance in the state.
That's true.
I mean, how ridiculous is that?
Yeah, that's true.
And that's done by the legislature. Correct. That's who that's done by.
Well, and our legislature continues to bow the knee to the federal government on every single thing. No legislator of ours seems to know what the 10th Amendment is. And even if they do know what the 10th Amendment is, even if they spout it, they certainly can't be doing a good enough job of influencing those around them or even their own citizens to be able to rise up to try to overcome all of this nonsense. So it's, I don't know. Well, we could go on with this for days. But let's talk about what's coming on Friday. We've got our friend Whitney Mullica from Pike Off OTA or Responsible Transportation, whatever you want to say. And her friend Kelly Williams, who's also a member of Pike Off OTA. They're going to come on and talk a little bit about some of the land deals that are surrounding these turnpike deals. And if you're still on today and you want to hear about something else that would make you bleed
More good news.
from
More
your
good
porch.
news from the Rope podcast.
Yes, and that's what we are right now anymore. I mean, I know we're supposed to be providing information, but I feel like we're always like Rosie, the robot on the Jetsons who wasn't able to get her vacuum cleaner fixed. And she would go, I'm like, poor Rosie. I feel your pain. And if you don't know who the Jetsons are, look them up on the internet. I love the Jetsons. It was my favorite thing growing up. Anything else, Michael, before we get off of here?
No.
I just thank you, everybody, for being on today. Really appreciate everybody. Had a really nice audience. Thank you, Harold Anderson, for viewing and for all of the comments that you made for us today. That was super helpful. So thank you. And I do have hopes that people are going to do that kind of thing and type in. I know Whitney does from time to time. She'll chime in and help us out with something. It's always good to get information from wherever the source. So as long as you can be nice about it, throw it in the comments and we'll put it up. So thank you for participating. Really, really do appreciate that. So I guess that's it, right?
That's it. Thank you, everybody.
See our Patreon account if you'd like to be able to donate and help us keep doing this every week. Every week, 2 times a week until a Memorial Day. So don't forget, Memorial Day, we have a Rope Report replay since Michael and I will be taking off that day for the holiday. And then after that, we're going to go to 1 podcast, which will be Wednesday, 1 a week until we get back into August and school starts up, and then we'll go back to the 2. So over the summer, we'll be only having 1 podcast on Wednesday morning live at 9 a.m. So we hope you put that on your calendar and stay tuned. So thank you again for your support. Thanks for watching. We appreciate your time. And we will see you again on Friday morning. It'll be a great podcast. Tune in.